Not every mistake carries the same weight. When a chosen one fails, the impact is different. The pain is not just personal, it seems to pierce the soul. And even when no one sees, everything inside screams. If you have ever made a mistake trying to do the right thing and felt devastated by it, this word is for you. The failure of someone with a calling feels greater, because it's not just the fall, it's the weight of expectation. The feeling that you have let down God, people, and yourself. But you need to know failing does not mean it's over. The calling does not disappear when you stumble. It only waits for your return. It is at this moment that many people hide. They fall silent. They think they have lost the right to continue. But God does not work with cancellation. He works with restoration. And sometimes it's at the bottom of the pit that He begins to rebuild something stronger than before. The fall only becomes the end if you stop there. What comes next depends on you. Either you get stuck in guilt or you choose to rise with greater awareness. God does not give up on the chosen. Even when everything seems lost, He still calls. He still looks. He still believes. And that is already reason enough for you not to give up now. I am George. If this content is making sense to you, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. It's simple, quick, and you will continue receiving messages like this. And if this word has touched something inside you, stay until the end, because there is more here that you need to hear. After the fall, what scares the most is not the pain, but the silence. You pray, and it seems there is no answer. You read the Bible, but nothing speaks to you. You go to church, but everything feels distant. The faith that was once strong turns into a weary attempt to believe. And then comes the question. Has God stepped away? This silence weighs heavily because the chosen one feels it when the presence diminishes. And even knowing that God does not leave, it seems like something has faded. The spiritual environment changes, and what was once light now feels blocked. It's as if everything has stopped, not out of anger from God, but because of your own mistake. The first reaction is fear. Fear of having disappointed, of having gone too far, of not being able to return. The silence turns into doubt. You begin to question whether you are still worthy of being in God's presence. And this pushes you further away. Because where there is guilt, there is distance. But God does not distance Himself to punish. He goes silent to adjust. The silence is the space where He allows you to see, without noise, without distractions. He doesn't shout because He wants you to pay attention. This silence is the beginning of something. It is a call for reconstruction, not a sentence of ending. Many give up at this stage. They think that God no longer cares. But in reality, this is the most delicate moment of the process, because it is when you are most vulnerable, most sensitive, and at the same time, most ready for change. Silence is not absence. It is an opportunity for reconnection with more truth. The chosen one feels everything more intensely. And when they err, they feel as if they have blocked their own mission. But it is in this emptiness that God begins to reorganize things. He will not lift you up with noise. He starts restoring in silence. Because before putting you back on your feet, He heals from within. Prayer changes in form. It stops being eloquent and becomes simple, a whisper, a help me. And that is when God hears more clearly, because there is no performance there, just truth. Heaven may seem silent, but it is attentive. Your surrender in the midst of silence is what moves everything again. Silence also teaches. It shows what you are carrying automatically. It makes you reconsider motivations, postures, intentions. And in this internal confrontation, many things are purified. God does not waste any fall. He even uses silence to make you see what you couldn't when everything was too loud. The hardest part is to continue, even without feeling anything. But that is the true sign of faith. To keep praying, even without an answer. To keep seeking, even with a wounded heart. Heaven moves in this kind of persistence. Because those who remain in the silence come back stronger when the voice begins to speak again. So do not flee from this moment. Do not despair. The silence hurts, but it also prepares. It is in this interval that God works more deeply. The fall may have created the silence, but God will use this time to heal you, align you, and lift you up. You are still chosen, and that does not change when everything goes quiet. The guilt of the chosen one carries a different weight. It is not just the regret for what was done, but the weight of knowing that one carries something greater. It is as if the mistake has not only affected oneself, but the purpose, the people, the calling. And this hurts in a way that many do not even perceive. The heart tightens because the chosen one understands that their obedience is connected to the destiny of others. When they fail, they feel that they have put everything at risk. It is not just shame, it is mourning. Mourning for having let something slip away, even if unintentionally. And this pain begins to corrode from within if it is not treated with truth. Many try to hide it, to continue acting normally. But guilt does not disappear with disguise. It goes silent, but it remains there. And if it is not brought to God with sincerity, it becomes weight. A weight that crushes, that paralyzes, that makes the person believe there is no turning back. The mind becomes a battlefield. The problem with guilt is that it steals identity. The person starts to see themselves only through the lens of their mistake. They forget everything they have lived with God. They forget the calling, they forget who they are. And in that place, shame takes over. But true repentance does not arise from shame. It arises from confrontation with the truth. When the chosen one allows themselves to feel the pain without fleeing, something begins to change. Because God does not reject a broken heart. He does not require perfection. He responds to sincerity. And the humility that arises from this is different. It is the kind that quiets down, that listens more, that does not try to justify itself all of the time. Guilt, treated in the presence of God, becomes repentance. Repentance becomes teaching, and teaching becomes maturity. Those who go through this with an open heart come back more conscious, less impulsive, more sensitive. God does not want to crush the chosen one who erred. He wants to restore based on true repentance, not self-accusation. The difference between guilt and condemnation is that guilt points out what needs to be corrected. Condemnation says that you no longer have value. And God never works with condemnation. He shows the error but also offers the way back. Only those who insist on staying down do not return. The weight of guilt can be unbearable alone. But when you bring that weight to God, something changes. You will not come out light overnight, but you will begin to walk again, one step at a time. God does not expect you to return running. He expects you to return sincerely. Many people give up on their calling for not knowing how to deal with guilt. But those who learn to face their mistakes without running away grow. They learn to listen more, to speak less, to depend more on God. The fall that made you feel unworthy can be the moment that makes you more useful than ever. So if you are at this point, surrender. Don't try to carry this alone. Bring it to prayer. Take it to the secret place. Not with the guilt of one who has failed, but with the thirst of one who wants to be restored. Because God is still willing to start over with you. And your pain in his hands will turn into wisdom. When the chosen one fails, the impact does not stay just within. It splashes onto those around. Wherever you do, people who once supported you begin to distance themselves. Some out of disappointment, others out of judgment, and some simply vanish. And this hurts because at the moment when you need support the most, the support fails. The emptiness weighs more than the mistake. The fall reveals the type of connection that existed. Some were close because of your strength, not because of your essence. When you err, they leave. And however harsh this may seem, it is necessary. God does not build new cycles with fragile alliances. The distancing of some is cleansing, not punishment. It is protection disguised as rejection. It's difficult to deal with gazes that once admired you, but now accuse. With words that once encouraged, but now hurt. But those with a real calling will go through this, because the process of restoration also separates. Not just you from the mistake, but you from everything that does not support your next phase. The loneliness in the process does not mean that God has left you. It means he wants to teach you to depend more on him than on opinions. When everything around you shakes, it is so you can rediscover who you are in essence, without applause, without external affirmation. Just you, God, and the purpose that is still standing. The connections that tremble reveal much more about others than about you. Those who truly love remain. Those who distance themselves for convenience were never part of the plan. God allows this shaking to show you who stays when everything crumbles. And this is worth more than 1,000 words of support in good times. It is not easy to keep going when many turn their backs, but that is where faith is proven. Those who continue, even alone, reveal maturity. And when you walk even without anyone to applaud you, heaven is watching. The true calling does not need an audience. It needs surrender. And that often happens in the silence of solitude. Perhaps you are experiencing this very moment, feeling that you are rebuilding alone, without a voice, without support. But do not be fooled. You are not alone. God is filtering your connections, cleansing the ties that do not move you forward. He is making space for real connections, aligned with what He has for you. The pain of distancing is real, but it has a function. God is making you understand that not everyone will go with you to the end, and that is okay. Those who need to be there will stay. Those who do not stay will make room for something healthier, sturdier, more genuine. So do not force anyone to stay. Do not fight to keep close those whom God is already distancing. What seems like a loss now is deliverance for later. God is allowing this shaking so that whatever is rebuilt will be firm. And you just need to trust the process, even without understanding everything right now. When the chosen one errs, the first thing that begins to disappear is the vision of who they are. The mind starts to play against them. Shame covers everything, and what was once certain turns into doubt. Does God still want me? Am I still part of the plan? These questions arise in silence but scream inside. The fall distorts the internal image. You no longer see yourself as someone used by God. You only see failure, weakness, guilt, and this weight gradually dims your identity. Not because God took it away, but because you allowed the mistake to occupy the place of truth. And when this happens, the purpose seems distant. The problem is that the mind of the chosen one has memory. It remembers what it has lived with God. It recalls the moments when it was strong, full of faith, full of vision. And this contrast between who they were and who they are now creates an internal struggle. The present seems too weak to carry the weight of the calling. Shame tries to rewrite your story. It makes you believe that every advance was an illusion, that everything was emotion, that you never truly had strength. But that is a lie. The mistake does not erase what God has built. It only shows you that you need to depend more on Him than on your own strength. What God has spoken about you still stands. The mistake does not cancel the calling. The promise does not disappear. It only goes on pause until you see yourself again, as He sees you. God does not call based on perfection. He calls based on purpose. And whom He has called, He sustains. The restoration of identity begins in silence. God does not restore everything at once. He rebuilds from the inside out. First, He reminds you that you are a child, then that you are still useful, and finally that you still carry a mission. When identity is healed, the path opens up again. In this phase, comparison is dangerous. Seeing others firm in their walk can make you feel even smaller. But God works individually. Your healing time does not nullify your value. Each wound has its process. And those who allow themselves to be fully restored come back more secure in who they are. You need to relearn to see yourself with the eyes of grace, not with the eyes of guilt. It is not about ignoring the mistake, but about not letting it become your definition. God still sees in you everything He has always seen, and He will remind you of this at the right time, in the right place. As long as you breathe, there is purpose. As long as there is sincere repentance, there is a chance to start over. The mistake affected you, but it did not destroy you. The identity may have shaken, but was not erased. And it is precisely when you understand this that God begins to lift you up, not based on your past, but on the value He has never ceased to see. There are moments when it seems that everything is over. The fall was ugly, the mistake was exposed, and the pain took over. But it is precisely at that point that something begins to change. The bottom of the pit, no matter how dark it seems, is where God starts to dig a new foundation. Failure, when surrendered to Him, becomes a turning point. The pain breaks pride. It tears down the constructed image. And this, although difficult, is what opens space for something true. When the chosen one stops trying to maintain appearances, God begins to work for real. No longer in the strength of performance, but in essence. Transformation begins when truth becomes greater than fear. Failure teaches what success hides. It reveals what needs to be addressed. It shows where the structure was weak. And God uses this to rebuild, not to humiliate you, but to align you. It is in the fall that you learn that you depend completely on Him. And this dependence changes everything. True transformation does not happen on stage. It happens in secret. It happens when you are in silence, facing your mistakes, confessing what no one saw, truly repenting. And it is there that God finds you, not with accusation, but with grace, because He does not throw away those who have fallen. He lifts up those who decide to change. The fall becomes a starting point. It becomes a testimony. It becomes authority, because after you go through this, you no longer look at others with judgment. You no longer see yourself as above anyone else. The process makes you more sensitive, more mature, more like what God wanted from the beginning. God is not impressed by those who have never fallen. He works with those who fall and get back up with a new heart. Because that is the kind of person who understands what grace is, who does not speak from a place of perfection, but from transformation. And this kind of voice has weight, has truth, has impact. What seemed like ruin, God transforms into a foundation. The ground that you thought would swallow you becomes the soil where He plants something new. But this only happens when you truly surrender, without a mask, without haste, with an open heart. God begins to rebuild where your end has become His beginning. So if you have failed, but still feel that there is something inside you that has not died, know this: that is God. He is still there, and He still wants to do. The failure was not the end. It was the portal. And those who cross this portal with sincerity return different and ready to live what they could not bear to carry before. Even when everything seems still, heaven continues to work. The chosen one may not feel anything, may think they have been forgotten. But God never abandons. God's help does not always come with noise or visible signs. He acts behind the scenes. He closes doors to protect. He removes people. He opens paths without making a fuss. There are moments when the silence is so great that it feels like abandonment. But it is in that silence that God sends what is necessary. A word that comes out of nowhere. Someone who appears at just the right time. A thought that reignites hope. He acts with precision. Nothing is by chance. Everything has a time and a purpose. The promise is not canceled because of the mistake. God does not take away what He has promised. He waits. He waits for repentance, maturity, sincerity. In the meantime, He prepares the environment for the return. Heaven continues to move, even when you are standing still, because God works in love, not in punishment. God cares for those He has chosen, even when that care does not seem visible. His care does not depend on your performance. He acts because He loves you. And God's love does not expect perfection. It expects surrender. Those who are willing to return find open arms, even if the to that point has been filled with failures. The return of the chosen one always stirs heaven, because it is not just about personal recovery. It is about the resumption of purpose. It is about impact. God sees more than your pain. He sees who will be healed through your return. That is why He never gives up, and that is why He helps, even when you do not see it. So if you are in the midst of silence, do not ignore the small signs. They are disguised help. You do not need to feel everything. You just need to respond. God is already moving for you, and when you decide to rise, you do not return alone. The whole of heaven walks with you. Those who have gone through a fall and have risen speak from a different place, not with arrogance, but with authority. The pain taught what theory never showed. The experience left marks, but also maturity. And this process, no matter how difficult it was, becomes a story. What was once a source of shame now becomes a bridge. You no longer hide, you transform. The fall of the chosen one does not nullify the calling. On the contrary, when they decide to rise, they carry with them a strength they did not have before. Because now they speak with awareness. They understand the weakness of others. They do not point fingers. They embrace. Failure has made them more sensitive, more human, more dependent on God. And that is what gives weight to their words. Testimony is only true when it carries sincerity, and the chosen one who goes through pain, who breaks pride, who faces their own mistakes head on, becomes someone who heals with their own voice. Not by being perfect, but because they know what it is to be restored. And those who have been restored know how to lift others up. Christian life is not made only of highs, it is made of falls as well. And when these falls are surrendered to God, He turns everything into something useful. No scar is wasted in the hands of God. Every healed wound carries healing for someone else. And what seemed like defeat becomes a sign that there is still grace. And plenty of it. You may have fallen. You may have been criticized, judged, abandoned. But if you have allowed yourself to be restored, you now have something more precious, a living testimony. Not something that impresses, but something that reaches. And the world needs more real voices that speak with truth, that show that it is possible to start over even after failure. Conclusion. The chosen one may fall, but is not forgotten. The journey of the chosen one is not always straight. Sometimes it breaks, sometimes it stops, sometimes it hurts, but it is never abandoned. If you have made it this far, carrying guilt, fear, or shame for something you have done, listen closely. God is not finished with you. He is waiting for your return, not your perfection. And that difference changes everything. The fall has shown you where you are fragile, but it has also revealed where God is strong. You have learned that you cannot walk alone, that you cannot live on the surface, that you need to be treated from the inside out. And if you allow God to lift you up with truth, He not only restores you, He repositions you. Do not hide. Do not define yourself by the mistake. Do not accept the lie that your story has stopped. If you are still breathing, there is still a plan. There is still a calling. There is still something to be done. And what God has started, He will finish, even with your stumbles, even with your delays, because He is faithful. The chosen one is not the one who has never fallen. It is the one who, even when fallen, still hears the voice of God and decides to rise. Not out of pride, but out of obedience, out of faith, out of love for the purpose that still lives within them. And when the chosen one returns, heaven moves, because heaven has never stopped believing in you. If this message has touched something in you, write in the comments. It could be a reflection, a change that needs to happen, or just a word that lingered. You don't need to justify, just register it with sincerity. Sometimes giving shape to what you feel is already a step toward recovery. Many go through silent processes, believing they are alone. But when you share, you declare that you are still in motion, and that has power. The comment you leave here may serve as confirmation for someone else who is on the same journey. What has this message